2, 1.
Welcome to Southern Sense Talk Radio with your host, the radio chick, Annie Ubelis. Join Annie on Tuesdays and Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time with an open chat room full of her regulars. And yes, you can even call in. Call 917-889-3675. That's 917-889-3675 to be a part of the action on the phone line. Not able to listen live? Not a problem. You can always catch Annie, the radio chick, and Southern Sense Talk Radio podcast in archives at southern-sense.com. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Southern Sense the right way.
Ooh, it's been one heck of a crazy weekend, but here we are back again here on Southern Sense, live on Blog Talk Radio, High Plains Media, SHR Media, Kinetic Hi-Fi, the Fix FM out of Charleston, South Carolina, iTunes, Stitcher, Steaker, oh the heck with it. Just go to our website, which is the name of the show, put a hyphen in the middle, southern-sense.com. I'm your hostess with the mostest, the radio chick, Annie, along with my intellectual, my so handsome, and author, Curtis C.S. Bennett. Good afternoon, Curtis. How are you doing today?
I'm just fine. Thanks for that grand intro there. I hope I can keep my head up.
Want to remind everyone that's listening in that we do have the chat room open on Blog Talk Radio. So if you want to join in the conversation, please feel free to go into the chat room. We've got two great guests lined up. The first will be calling in at quarter after the hour, and that is Dan Adamini, DJ, musician, conservative, Christian, comedian. He's man about town, all over the place. He's got a bunch of parodies. We'll be playing those also with him, and we're going to have a blast. And then at the second half, we're going to have the right-hand man to former Prime Minister David Cameron. And we're going to be talking to him because he's now living here in the United States with his wife, who happens to be vice president at Uber. He's over at Stanford University. He also has a new website up called Crowdpac. We'll be talking to him about that, as well as the Brexit vote and our election and these adorable deplorables that we all have become over the weekend. So we're going to have a lot of fun here, Curtis. So we ready to rock and roll?
I'm looking forward to it.
All right. We're going to be ready to rock and roll here. Want to welcome again everyone that's listening in the studio, as well as those that are in the chat room. Welcome aboard. Each and every one of you know that we start off every show with a dedication to a fallen hero. And today is no different. Today's dedication, once again, another police officer has fallen. Today's dedication is going to go out to Senior Police Officer Leander Frank of the Navajo Division of Public Safety, the Tribal Safety Unit. His end of watch was just recently, Tuesday, August 30th, 2016. And this is from the Officer Down Memorial page. Officer Leander Frank was killed in a head-on crash while responding to a call in Apache County, Arizona. He was traveling on Indian Route 64 between Tassel and Chinelli when their vehicles collided. Officer Frank was killed in the crash. The other occupants of the vehicles were injured. Officer Frank served with the Navajo Division of Public Safety for 13 years. This is also from, I can barely read this, Nation Online, from Window Rock. The Navajo Nation is mourning. Police Officer Leander Frank of Navajo Police Department lost his life while responding to a call in the Chinle District on August 30th. We send heartfelt condolences and prayers to the family and friends of the Navajo Police Officer Leander Frank. The Navajo people grieve his loss and I have ordered flags across the Navajo Nation to be flown at half-staff in his honor from sunrise on September 3rd to sunset on September 3rd, said Navajo Nation President Russell B. Gay. Officer Frank has reached the end of watch, and on behalf of the grateful nation, we extend our solemn appreciation for his service to the Navajo people, he added. Frank served the Navajo Police Department for more than 13 years and was the rank of senior police officer. Arizona Governor Doug Ducey ordered flags across the state to be flown at half-staff to honor the life and service of Navajo police officer Leander Frank on August 31st. Vice President Jonathan Nez said, "Our Navajo people have taken the oath to serve and protect the Navajo people, and many have given their lives in service to our nation. We are grateful for the honorable service of Leander Frank, and we send our condolences to his family." He noted that the Begay-Nez administration was committed to constructing a memorial to the fallen officers of the Navajo police to honor and preserve their memory. Officer Frank was the 12th officer of the Navajo police to be killed in the line of duty since 1975. 7 Navajo police were killed by gunfire, 3 by automobile accident, 1 by assault, and 1 succumbed to a heart attack. From the Officer Down Memorial page. This was written by Deputy U.S. Marshal Derek W. Hotspinner. It was from the mother of U.S. Marshal Derek Hotspinpiller, whose end of watch was February 16th of 2011. And she wrote, "Every morning I go to my knees. During the time I pray, Lord, be with all law enforcement officers. Keep them safe and free from harm. They are your soldiers on the front line of the battle against evil. If one should fall this day, wrap their family in your loving arms. Surround them with your angels, loving family, friends, neighbors, and caring people to comfort them. Ease their pain. Help them to mourn well. In Jesus' name and for your glory. Amen." Feel his presence as God answers the prayers of many who have fallen to their knees on your behalf. Since the day of my son's death, I have carried every law enforcement officer and their family in my heart. I have lifted you and your family to God every morning for over 5 years. Feel these prayers. God is with you. He knows and will ease your pain. Our faith helps us to see beyond the grave. And finally, this is from the 23rd Navajo Nation Council, Office of the Speaker. Speaker Lorenzo Bates. The Navajo Nation Council extended their heartfelt condolences to the family, loved ones, and other Chinle Police District for the loss of Navajo Nation Senior Police Officer Leander Frank, who passed away during the line of duty on Tuesday morning. On behalf of the Navajo National Council, I send my sincerest condolences to the wife, children, family, and the Chinle Police District for the loss of Officer Frank, a protector and warrior of the Navajo Nation, stated Speaker Franks. On Tuesday morning, Senior Officer Leander Frank was on duty en route to respond to a call on Navajo Route 63 when he was involved in a head-on vehicle collision east of Chinle, Arizona. Chinle Police District responded to the scene, and Arizona Department of Public Safety was called to investigate the vehicle collision. Our hearts are saddened with the passing of Officer Frank. Our communities are safer because of Officer Frank's willingness to put his life at risk to shield others from harm. We will always be grateful for his life and the humbleness for making the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty. He is a true definition of Navajo warrior, and he will be dearly missed, said Law and Order Committee Chair Council Delegate Edmund Yazzie. We express our deepest appreciation and heartfelt thanks to the family of sharing Officer Frank Leander's life with the Navajo Nation. May the holy people bless the family, loved ones, and the police officers of the Navajo Nation with strength and comfort. We will continue to pray for the safety of our police officers and communities, added Speaker Franks. Today's show is dedicated to Senior Officer Franks. We also dedicate it to all of the brave men and women who every day go out to protect and serve as our first responders. And we also dedicate it to the brave men and women in our military, to those that have served, are serving, and will serve. To them, we dedicate this show and the song Last Call by Dave Bray. God bless them all. Dave Bray, Last Call, and you can get that song by going to his website, which is davebrayusa.com. Check it out. And we're back, and this is Southern Sense here on Blog Talk Radio, High Plains Media, SHR Media, Kinetic Hi-Fi, the Fix FM out of Charleston, South Carolina. The heck with it. You know what I'm going to say next. Just simply go to our website. It's the name of the show. Put a hyphen in the middle, southern-sense.com. I'm your hostess with the mostest, the radio chick Annie, along with my co-host Curtis C.S. Bennett. Curtis, that was one of the harder dedications I had to do. I had a hard time reading because I was starting to cry, if you could hear it in my voice. And I got to tell you, this was one of the hardest weekends I ended up going through, being the 15th anniversary of 9/11. You know that I've lost a couple of friends on that day, cops that I worked with. Matter of fact, one of the last things I did before I retired from NYPD was write a meritorious commendation for Sergeant Rodney Gillis. He worked for Truck 8 and was one of the very first ESU trucks to respond to the World Trade Center on 9/11, and he did not make it home. He was a gentle man, always a smile on his face, and I could still see him standing there next to my desk when I told him that we awarded him the MPD. And this weekend was really hard, so I am not going to cry. I am not going to cry. But that said, let's go on to a lighter note and bring a little humor into the day. And the best way to do that is if I can get this up and running. Oh, here we go. This is done by our next guest, and I'm going to use this to introduce him. And let me bring it up and on.
Every time I speak, I make the news, and a lot of folks don't like my views. There's a price to pay for some of the things I say them anyway, 'cause I'm not PC. I'm not PC. Day after day, you can hear the liberals whining, trying to ban words they say need redefining. Yes, I always say what's on my mind. If I think you're great or a horse is behind, no, do not expect me to be politically correct. No, that's not me. No, I'm not PC. I'm not PC. Day after day, you can hear the liberals whining, trying to ban words they say need redefining. Oh, those liberal kooks have lost their minds. They're too sensitive or have no spine. Yes, it seems absurd to try to ban certain words, 'cause speech is not free if you are PC. Don't be PC. I'm not 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 PC.
Well, with that said,
I'm not
let's
PC.
bring aboard the author, the creator, and the person behind I'm Not PC, Dan Adamini. Good afternoon, Don.
Dan, and glad to be on the show.
I'm sorry, Dan. I'm sorry. I wrote Dan. I'm saying Don. My eyes are still blurry.
Well, that's quite all right. I've been called much worse.
You are the author of the website intherightmind.net, where people can check out your radio show, your rantings, your ravings, your parodies. I mean, what made you get into doing this?
Actually, ever since I was young, I mean, we came from a musical family, and whether it be with friends, just kind of making up songs to familiar melodies, for whatever the topic was, that just kind of spurned into this. As I became politically active, I found that there was an audience for making fun of whoever deserves to be made fun of at that particular moment.
And now you've got a really good one. I want to know what you're going to do with the basket full of deplorables, because I'm an adorable deplorable.
Well, actually, I'm in the midst of writing it. While I was writing, listening to your monologue, I started writing I was torn between using. The hardest part of this is picking what song to use, and I was thinking it's just got a tasket because the basket. But I'm really thinking I'm going with the A, you're adorable, and using for D, we're deplorable, and that'll be on this week's show by Saturday.
And where can people find your show? What time do you broadcast and stuff?
We are live on Saturdays from 10 a.m. till noon Eastern Time, and the best way to link there is from the website, intherightmind.net. We are a one-station show right now in Upper Michigan, and we're looking to expand, but at the moment we're still working out the technical difficulties of expanding to many stations.
Well, so it's an online podcast, or is it terrestrial?
No, this is actually live terrestrial radio. So in Upper Michigan, we're on 1320 a.m. and 1240 a.m., but it does stream live during the show.
As a matter of fact, I see my former co-host is in the studio listening in, and he's from Grand Rapids, Michigan, so I know he's going to be checking it out.
Yes, they're about 5 or 6 hours south of me. I'm up on the southern shore of Lake Superior, up in God's country.
All of America should be God's country, but with the exception of the left coast.
Well, that's well said, yes.
Oh, man. You've got so many... go ahead, Curtis.
Dan, this is Curtis. How much of your... I love your parodies, first of all. How
Thank
much
you.
of it is inspiration? In other words, it just comes natural to you, and how much you have to sit down and plan and figure out as far as
Actually, I tell people, most of the time, I say it's really kind of a part blessing and part curse. As I'm listening to a story on the news, these thoughts pop into my head, and I've always been good with words. And if I don't write them down and record them, it stays in my head forever. So it's the cathartic way I have to rid myself of the thought is to actually get it down and record it. So most of it comes very naturally. Once I choose the song I'm going to use, the song is usually written in 15, 20 minutes. But sometimes I'll pick days trying to find what song I'm going to use.
Wow. So you're just trying to find out the music that would fit the song the best when you're putting it together. So actually the words come first and then the music?
Generally, actually, the ideas for the lyrics come first, but then it's a matter of finding the song. For instance, with the Colin Kaepernick, issue, I was really considering using the Star-Spangled Banner, but I thought that would be too disrespectful, so I'm going to use the song, You Have to Be a Football Hero, because I wanted something that would have that same theme for it to then be able to belittle that little punk.
Someone should, because I was watching the game last night, and again he sat down on the bench. That was not the weekend to do that.
No, and I'm not sure there ever is a weekend, and it would be easier to respect the guy if he was actually protesting something that was true, but he's protesting for something that is not even true, and it's very hard to find any respect for that.
Well, I never understood the logic, because there was a female sailor. She stupid enough to videotape herself and put it up on Facebook, where they had the morning colors, where they played chaps and everything else, and they raised the flag. She sat down. This is a sailor on base. And then she uses the excuse that it was the third line of the Star-Spangled Banner that she was protesting. Hello, I'm going to say it, bimbo. But that line was, that third verse was removed back in 1965. So what does that have to do with today?
Yeah, most people, sadly, are not. Well, I guess probably the best way to say it is over the last couple of generations, we've spent a lot of time dumbing down society. So people get upset very easily over very little, and most of the time it's over things that are not actually even accurate or true. And I often say the best thing we could do to rid ourselves of liberals in this world is to just educate people better.
Well, that said, I'm going to pull up another one of your parodies, and that's one, it's called Let's Shoot the Sheriff. So I'm going to play that now. Here goes.
Let's shoot the sheriff, and then let's shoot the deputy. The city police, and every uniform we see. I'm angry because I saw the police shoot a man. So I'm out for revenge, killing every cop that I can. Let's kill every cop that we can. That's why I say, let's shoot the sheriff, and then let's shoot the deputy. The city police, and every uniform we see. Yes, it's true that I don't know why the cop pulled his gun, but all I need to know is the guy he shot looks like Obama's son. If Obama had a son, oh, he would say, let's shoot the sheriff, and then let's shoot the deputy. The city police, and every uniform we see. President Obama said, police act stupidly. So if I break the law, I know Obama will stand up for me. And the Democrats will defend me. And they will say, let's shoot the sheriff, and then let's shoot the deputy. The city police, and every uniform we see. Let's shoot the sheriff, and then let's shoot the deputy. Let's shoot the sheriff, and every uniform we see.
You know what I love about the songs? Because people they can listen on the radio here, but they have to go to your website to actually see the videos that you put together to match the song. And some of the graphics you use is absolutely hysterical.
Yeah, and that's intentional because a song like that, you could hear that and say, oh my God, that's a horrible song, and not realize that I'm making fun of the people who are doing that. So the videos actually do help that. And, I got 300 songs in the show archives, probably about 160 or 70 on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm looking at the chat room as we're talking, and this despicable deplorable remark by Hillary Clinton is getting a lot of play, as well as Kaepernick sitting out again. But it wasn't just that. If you watch the football games, some of the guys actually pumped their fist up in the Black Panther salute. Now, one of the players said, no, that was supposed to be, showing a fist bump saying, united we stand. But they actually think that the fans really want to see this. You're out there to play a sport. Play the sport. If you want to make a comment off the field, take it off the field.
And I absolutely agree with that. But again, even if they did something as deplorable, I'll use Hillary's word, as trying to make a point, it might be effective if the point they were trying to make was honest. But Kaepernick is talking about the lie of the cops shooting people of color for no reason other than the fact that they might be black. It's a lie. It's been a lie, and why we are even allowing this man to still wear that uniform, it's beyond me. The San Francisco organization.
Yeah, there should be a morality clause that should be invoked and say, all right, fine. You have the right of free speech, but we also have the right to enforce a certain moral code. And we don't think this code fits with our moral viewpoint. Why can't we do something like that? You have the right to say something as stupid as you want. Go ahead, Dan.
And they do. Yeah, they absolutely do. In fact, one song, I try not to use the song more often than once, but when the whole morals clause would be an issue with probably half the NFL, because remember a couple of years ago when, was it Ray Rice or Ray, somebody who beat up his girlfriend in the elevator? So there's a song on YouTube about that one too. You got to be a football hero to get away with hitting a girl. It's frustrating that these people are looked up to as heroes, but they certainly are not in my eyes.
Yeah, and then you have Michael Vick that actually served time, and then he is allowed back onto the field. I'm sorry, that's not to me a good moral character that I want a child of mine to look up to, But one thing
there's so many good players in the NFL that do so much good, and that's where it frustrates me when it's not, you can't say just one bad apple, because there's plenty of bad apples, but there are so many great examples of players in the NFL that do so much good, and they don't get the press that these bad actors do.
No, and that's the shame. You have someone like Tim Tebow that was a shining example of what a good player is, and the media excoriated him. Oh, how dare he show his Christianity?
Yep, I guess that's one place. Free speech is no longer applies to people of faith.
No, what about freedom of religion too?
They tend to misread the Constitution. So again, if we would buy every liberal a dictionary and a history book, we'd probably have far fewer liberals.
Only 5. Only 5. Well, I'm telling you, the chat room is going crazy. So if anyone wants to call in and ask Dan a question, feel free. The phone number is 917-889-3675. Curtis, you got something there?
Yeah, I got a question. Dan, what do you think about Hillary's recent medical episode on the 9/11 at the 9/11 ceremony? If I had pneumonia and it was that bad, I don't think I'd be visiting, one of my children's apartments. I think I would want to be taken to the hospital.
How would you like to be the mother of that little girl that she hugged just before she collapsed?
Wow, yeah, you got a point there. But why do you think...
I guess a lot of people's dreams came true, and to see Hillary, passed out and thrown into a van is probably a dream of many people on the right. But, of course, I do wish her health well. I'd like her to be healthy enough so she could get her butt kicked in November.
Well, there's going to be a story coming out about that collapse and the reason why she went to Chelsea's apartment. And this is just starting to break. And let me just pull the article up, because I pulled it up just moments before we went on air. Oh, come on, where is it? Oh, that's the wrong one. Come on. Fingers work. There we go. Got it. This is breaking on various different networks, and it's being picked up all over the place. The building that Chelsea lives in, the Whitman building, is at 21 East 26th Street on the 4th floor. And these are one of those railroad apartments where it goes straight through, and it's like 5,000 square feet in the Flatiron District.
Wow.
Well, guess what is also listed as an occupant at the very same address on the 4th floor, which can only be Chelsea Clinton, because there's only 4 apartments in the building, because the building only has 4 floors. And I'm sorry, one of my favorite NASCAR drivers happens to live there too, Jeff Gordon. Jeff Gordon, get out of there. But what is there on the 4th floor, listed at 21 East 26th Street, is MetroCare Home Services. It is a medical senior care facility. Gee, isn't that interesting? Why she didn't go to a hospital but to her daughter's apartment? Does that answer a lot of questions?
I figured maybe it was just to pick up some email.
Well, what I heard was that she didn't go to the hospital because she couldn't control the doctors there, and if they found out she didn't have pneumonia, or if she did and they found something else, she couldn't control whether or not they leaked it to the public.
That's probably very, very accurate.
Well,
she's such a control freak.
Well, the New York Department of Health lists MetroCare Home Services at that address of Chelsea Clinton. So if the New York Department of Health is acknowledging that there is a medical facility within Chelsea Clinton's apartment, and this was also picked up by Rush Limbaugh, too. So there's got to be something to it. There's got to be some gravitas to the fact that she does not want her medical condition to be open to the public, which is all the more reason we should be concerned.
See, I can't imagine what difference it would make, because everybody already knows all of the horrible things that Hillary has done. I can't believe that anybody who isn't completely behind her would be swayed, even if she was found to have horns in the tail, they'd still vote for her. So I can't imagine there's anything in there that would really sway anybody on the Hillary camp.
And I agree with you. I agree with you, your assessment, because people already have their minds made up, basically, at this point.
Yeah, they talk about the independent or the undecided voters, and I got to say, who the heck could be undecided at this point in the game? I mean, where have you been?
That's a good question. But you do have a Hillary song, and I'm going to be playing that. Let's sit back and enjoy this one called Dark Lady Clinton.
When Hillary tells a lie, the Democrats just turn a blind eye. And when she commits a crime, they hide their heads where the sun never shines. 'Cause they don't value honesty, so they excuse her criminality. They don't want to hear or see, 'cause the Democrats love crooked Hillary. Dark Lady Clinton now is known as Crooked Hillary. She gets away with things that would convict you and me. Dark Lady Hillary, you know she lives above the law. She is the greatest criminal I ever saw. I can still remember when most Democrats were good Americans. But now it seems so long ago, whoever thought they could sink so low? Clinton honesty is rare, but that's okay, 'cause the Democrats don't care. No matter what laws Clinton broke, Crooked Hillary still will get their vote. Dark Lady Clinton now is known as Crooked Hillary. She gets away with things that would convict you and me. Dark Lady Hillary, you know she lives above the law. She is the greatest criminal I ever saw. Is it right to blame the crook for the crimes that she undertook? Or should we all condemn the Democrats who run to defend? I would say they're both to blame, Hillary and the fools who shout her name. So if you've got a low IQ and have no morals, Hillary's for you. Dark Lady Clinton now is known as Crooked Hillary. She gets away with things that would convict you and me. Dark Lady Hillary, you know she lives above the law. She is the greatest criminal I ever saw. Dark Lady Clinton now is known as Crooked Hillary. She gets away with things that would convict you and me. Dark Lady Hillary, you know she lives above the law. She is the greatest criminal
I love that. I was sitting here in my seat dancing to that one. And I got to tell you guys, you've got to check this video out because the graphics he has on Hillary Clinton and the things he writes on those graphics, I'm telling you, there's a couple of hosts listening in the chat room. I'm telling you, you got to use that song on your shows, guys.
And actually, one of the biggest favors anybody could do for me, subscribe to the channel, because that way, as I post songs, and this is just a hobby for me. So when I do this, it's usually like late at night. But you will be the first ones to see these songs when they're posted if you subscribe to that channel.
Yeah, and you're also up in YouTube, so that people can subscribe to the YouTube channel too, right?
Exactly. Yes.
I don't know if you caught any of the House committee's hearing today on the Hillary email Clinton servers.
I only saw the snippet where was it Chaffetz who served the FBI person with a subpoena. That's the only thing I saw from yesterday.
Yeah, that was the guy that set up the original server in her home back in, I think he said it was 2009. He set up the first one. So he was the only one out of all those people that subpoenaed that actually did not declare the fifth or did not show up. You had that one guy, Pagliano, that simply refused to even show up. So there's going to be an arrest warrant out, I hope, for him. Because there are consequences.
I mean, they should already be in jail.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But what he was saying, that one that did testify, was absolutely shocking. Here is a woman that served as First Lady. She was the one that was behind the Whitewater scandals. She was the one about Travelgate. She knew what security procedures are because she was there with her husband for 8 years. You got to tell me you don't know how to handle top secret documents?
Sadly, so many people, again, just don't care. If she was caught drowning puppies on TV, the Democrats would be saying, well, we have too many puppies in the world.
Oh, no. Oh, no, that's so cruel on the puppies. I wouldn't put them on TV with her.
Yeah.
But,
Hillary has been a fighter for a lot of songs. I think I got 6 or 8 songs about Hillary. I got several for the Donald. And, whatever happens to be in the news, sometimes it's not even political. There are a lot of things that happen outside of the scope of the political world. And actually, some of my favorite songs are along those lines.
Well, here's another one, another scandal that's going to be breaking, and this was up in the Daily Caller today. Actually, no, yesterday. Oh, no, what is today? Yesterday, okay. John Kerry's daughter, guess what? She got something like $6.4 million while John Kerry is still Secretary of State through a nonprofit that was funneled through the Peace Corps, courtesy of favors by her daddy. So you got Clinton doing pay per play as Secretary of State, and now you got Kerry doing the same thing as Secretary of State.
Well, I guess then we'll have to have another visit where you can play the John Kerry song, and that one's on YouTube as well.
I thought about downloading it, and I says, well, there's nothing really great going on with Kerry outside of, his traveling around the world trying to make it look like we're a powerful nation, and once again, it's not working. And lo and behold, I pulled this up this morning, and I says, dang it, I missed out on a good opportunity.
Well, is it any surprise that one would think that if Hillary and Bill can get away with it, maybe I?
No.
Yes, and that really is, again, the sad statement on society is not the fact that we have, criminals. As long as there have been people, there have been awful people. But generally they've been, frowned upon and looked down upon and outcast. And now we tend to promote them to high office, and that's a pretty sad statement.
All right, well, I was wrong on the amount of money. Actually, $9 million of Department of State money has been funneled through the Peace Corps to a nonprofit foundation started and run by Secretary of State John Kerry's daughter, documents obtained by the Daily Caller. State Department funded a Peace Corps program created by Dr. Vanessa Kerry and officials from both agencies, records show. Peace Corps then awarded the money without competition to a nonprofit Kerry created for the program. It is now called the Seed Global Health, with a 3-year contract worth $2 million on September 10th, and then they turned around and secured a 4-year extension in September 2015. So a total of $9 million were funneled to Dr. Vanessa Kerry's organization, Seed Global Health, and no bid, non-competition. So in other words, hey, you're going to send this to my daughter. The same way Hillary did it, hey, you're giving this to Bill. And
yes. And remember how much they hated the no-bid contracts when it was, when it was actually something to help our military. No-bid contracts are only a bad thing if they benefit the military or the country, but they're fine when they benefit a member of the political class's family, shall we say.
Oh, absolutely. And my computer's starting to play games with me. Don't do that. Don't do that. Stop. Okay. I had some pop-ups flashing in front of me that says, no, I don't need you to do that now. You've got a great song called The Trump Train. And, I was wondering when someone was going to come along with a song for Trump when they said, get aboard the Trump train. And you do have a great one.
Well, thank you.
And we're going to play that. And as soon as I can get this going and get that going.
People from coast to coast, join hands. Join the Trump train, make America great again. Board the Trump train. The primary race was pretty nasty. It was a long and vicious fight. But now it's time to come together. 'Cause if we want to win, we're gonna have to unite. Come together, people! People from coast to coast, join hands. Join the Trump train, make America great again. Board the Trump train. America can be great again. An inspiration to everyone. Ignore those whiny little liberals, and we'll be winning. There's so much winning still to be done. Come together, people! People from coast to coast, join hands. Join the Trump train, the Trump train. Make America great again. Board the Trump train, the Trump train. If you were for Carson, Christie or Rubio, Jindal, Fiorina or Huckabee, Santorum, Paul or Kasich, Walker or Perry, Graham, Bush, and Cruz supporters, come join with me. Come together now. Everybody, people from coast to coast, join hands. Join the Trump train, the Trump train. Make America great again. Board the Trump train, the Trump train. Trump, Donald Trump. Trump, Donald Trump. People from coast to coast, join hands. Join the Trump train, the Trump train. Make America great again. Board the Trump train, the Trump train. People from coast to coast, join hands. Join the Trump train, the Trump train. Make America great again. Board the Trump train, the Trump train. All aboard! Come on now, everybody get on board. It'll be huge.
I love that. Huge. Well,
a little homage to Donald there.
Well, we got a caller from Grand Rapids. Let's welcome aboard Cool Mike. Good afternoon, Mikey. Mike, unmute yourself. Mike, unmute yourself.
Okay, I got myself unmuted. Hi, everybody. I want the host to apologize. That opening song, the intro, Annie, was insensitive to the leftist liberals. I'm sure they're right now pacing the floor, talking about this guy from northern Michigan, what a radical he is, and oh boy, I love the music, that's for sure, and I even love the lyrics even better. How many times can we let them have it? I'm going to have to play that at the next school board meeting. But anyway, where are you in Michigan? I heard you mentioned you were up in the Great North, but I wasn't sure where.
Yes, I reside in the People's Republic of Marquette, Michigan.
Okay, home of the Redmen.
Yes, yes it is.
Yeah. What inspired you, to start writing these type of music? I mean, in a lot of ways, your songs are almost what we all say when we're in the car listening to these liberals on TV or radio. I mean, it's like our words verbatim, but you put them to music.
Well, I really appreciate that. It really started from the standpoint, I started up just trying to, at parties and stuff, to try to bring a laugh to everybody, to kind of lighten things up, because, we talk about some pretty dire issues, and so I thought, well, laughter always helps break, helps the mood a little bit. And then I thought, well, rather than just getting on the radio and talking like so many other people do, so many wonderful people, I wanted to do something a little different. So I consider this my musical commentary. I thought is maybe a better way to approach it. So I can make my point. Sometimes the tunes stick with people much to their dismay, because they'll be humming that chorus about the Trump train for the next 2 hours. And so really it just started from trying to help people have a good time before we got to something serious. And then I thought, nobody else is doing commentary this way. Maybe I can find a little niche of my own.
It's certainly been, it certainly took the words right out of our mouth. My next question was, actually, it's for all three of you, actually. Okay, first she had a cough, then a cold, then the flu, now pneumonia. Did it remind you of when a mother interrogates her son on where he got that candy bar or the toy from the store that she doesn't remember going down the aisle? The first thing is, Mom, I'm not sure how it got there, blah, blah. Then eventually, the full confession. Geez. Then our person was dehydration. I think to myself, man, oh, man. Oh, geez.
I think I don't know. I believe it's all a cover-up. I believe there's something neurologically wrong with Hillary, and they're just trying their best to keep it hidden.
And of course, there's no need to do that because, again, she could be. Nobody cares if you're a supporter of Hillary. You will support her no matter what. She could be on a machine. She could be in a Darth Vader mask, and she could be just that. She'd get just as many votes as she will in her current condition.
And I agree with that.
Well, we had someone earlier posted. I think it was Kel that said that Hillary Clinton can go out and shoot someone, and then blame it on Sarah Palin wearing a Hillary Clinton mask. So, but you notice that
I think it's accurate.
But if you notice that, she's saying, well, I don't remember. I think I may have only had this twice. But then Bubba, her husband, turns around and goes, oh, no, she's done that plenty of times. Really? She can only remember doing it twice.
That's your famous court line right there. When, I think it was 13 years ago when I had the furnishing alcohol to a minor, the guy's briefing me. He says, if you get caught, you don't remember. Just basically tonight, I don't recall. How many people were at the party? What party? I'm not sure. These are just your typical tactics. She doesn't remember, and that whole line. Well, did you wipe your surface? You go, oh, with a rag. Recently, one of our Grand Rapids public schools. It's a primarily African American school, 90 plus. What they've done in Grand Rapids, they've merged all the schools' bands. So basically, a lot of people go to watch their kids during the band. Well, anyway, this guy writes a letter. He was very upset. The opposing team, they were running around with an American flag and a Trump sign. And he said it left the community unsettling. So he writes this letter. And I think to myself, so I finally retaliated by basically saying, the majority of the people in that school are African American. They don't need a white progressive to talk down to them as if these people are stupid. Of course, they weren't offended because they didn't even care. But of course, this is how they operate. They smear you. It's the very first tactic is to demonize. So what it does is give you less credibility. This is Saul Lewinsky. This is the Bolsheviks. I mean, this is how they operate. And the same thing with Hillary. She collapsed. She wasn't dehydrated. It's not just the flu. I mean, this is absolute. But you're right. She could drown the puppies, and they say, well, there's too many puppies. She can do absolutely no wrong whatsoever.
Oh, man.
So another thing is, if you have a heat stroke, why didn't anybody bring her a bottle of water or have her take her coat off? What is she hiding under that coat?
You're right. Why didn't they have water immediately right there if she's dehydrated?
Wait a minute. Now, she had heat stroke, but the temperature was 77 degrees with a mild breeze. It was cool and comfortable. Have you ever had a heat stroke at 77 degrees? No, I'm reaching for a sweater. Hello? I mean, heat stroke was in the 90s.
She was probably more, unable to adapt from the coals when she rose from the depths of hell to get to that event.
Heat stroke, dehydration, take your choice.
Andy, you would know this in prior law enforcement. The way they responded to that was that she was wearing a bulletproof vest, and that gets very hot.
Well, bulletproof vests can become hot, but it has to be a hot day. At 77 degrees, the bulletproof vest is not that heavy that it will cause you sweat, unless you're out there running after someone. Please, guys, I wore it every single day. We even wore it inside the precinct because we had nuts that would come in. We actually had one guy with a gun run in the front door of the precinct. This is the 90th precinct in Brooklyn, New York. He comes running in the front door brandishing a gun. Hello? You're running into somewhere there's other cops there with guns? He made it about to the third step and he was taken down. I don't mean he was shot. We took him down. But, come on.
I guess the follow-up. I guess the follow-up to that would be, she was hot flashing.
At her age, if she was still having hot flashes, that's got to be miraculous.
Here's the thing. We saw the same thing with Bill. Okay, I did not have sex relations with that girl. I never told anyone a lie. You know what? It's the same thing. Just say what it is. I mean, the fact that she may. She may have some challenges health-wise. It's not going to demean from, her Nazi-like following. That's the wrong word to use, but it's like that. I mean, just tell us. These people just don't know the truth. And the thing is that so many people believe them. If you remember, these people who are women livers or women, whatever groups you want to call them, Monica Lewinsky was an attention whore. She was all that kind of stuff that you don't say up until the fact Bill admitted that they had oral sex. I mean, this is how these people operate. They just...
But, if Hillary was having a hot flash while wearing a bulletproof vest, then I would rename her Sarah, wife of Abraham, who was able to give birth while she was in her 70s to Isaac. Really?
Yeah,
it has to be a miracle.
Whenever you hear the thing flashing in the Clintons, I guess I would just automatically assume it was talking about Bill.
Well, she's
he was flashing too, huh?
Oh, man. Dan, if you want, you can stick around for our next guest. Let me bring him on. But before I bring him, I want to use one of your parody songs to introduce him. And let me get my little thing up here, and let's get this going.
The European Union is breaking down. The European Union is breaking down. The European Union is breaking down. And breaking up is what they'll do. Great Britain says they're gonna leave. The European Union can't believe the vote is done, the union's through, and breaking up is what they'll do. Remember when the whole thing started? Hopes were high, but now they'll be parted. The Brits are leaving the EU, and breaking up is what they'll do. The British say the union had way too much power. That's one reason the thing went sour. No one gives their sovereignty away unless they are a Democrat in power in the USA. What happens next? Time will tell. Will life go on or will things go to hell? Union supporters are very blue, 'cause breaking up is what they'll do. Breaking up is what they'll do. Breaking up is what they'll do. Breaking up is what they'll do.
With that said, let's bring aboard our next guest, former senior aide and best friend to British Prime Minister David Cameron, Steve Hilton. Good afternoon, Steve.
Hi, it's so great to be with you. I love that song.
Well, we have...
Thank you.
It's wonderful. Will you please let me know some kind of link to it so I can tweet it out? I think a lot of my...
You can find it on YouTube. You type in Dan Adamini and Brexit, and you'll go right there.
I will
Perfect.
I will actually send you a link, Steve, because the author and the performer of that has joined us. He was my guest just prior to you, so I asked him to hang around, and I deliberately played that because I wanted to use it as an intro to you.
Well, it's just wonderful, and I know that a lot of my Twitter followers are still back in the UK will enjoy that very much.
Well, you are an unorthodox man, so I figured the best way to bring you on is use an unorthodox method.
That's right. Well, we should probably make clear for the audience right away that although you're correct to introduce me as former senior aide to David Cameron and a very close friend of his for many years, I did in fact part company from him over Brexit and campaigned very vigorously on the other side to him in favor of Brexit. So I don't think the word close friend or the term close friend is a good description of where we are today.
No, matter of fact, you wrote an article for the Daily Mail, and I'm just reading from that article that they printed, and they also included yours, that you said that the arrogant and dismissive treatment of Britain's relatively modest demands in the 2015-2016 negotiations shows that the EU is just not interested in anything other than superficial change. You might as well hope for Vladimir Putin to embrace liberal democracy. Wow.
Well, that's exactly right. And the reason I said that is that, I mean, we can get into the whole argument about the EU and the origins of it and so on, but there's this hope that has been around for many, many years, decades actually, in the UK and elsewhere, that, well, we like the idea of a single market for our businesses to be able to trade easily, but we don't like the way that the EU has developed into an undemocratic, centralizing, bureaucratic power that tries to interfere in all these different areas of national life. So what we'll do is negotiate. We'll stay in there and negotiate and take it back to what it always should have remained, which is just a single market. That has been what people have been saying for at least 20 years. And the reason I wrote that in that Daily Mail article is that it's a complete fantasy. The EU is just not interested in that. And we might as well be clear about it. They only are interested in deeper integration between the countries, in more centralization of power, taking power away from member states and centralizing it in the bureaucracy in Brussels. And fine, that's their right to have that position, but let's just be clear about it and give up this false hope that it can somehow be reformed.
A lot of us here stateside were following what was going on with the Brexit vote, and a lot of us were putting a parallel between the rise of Margaret Thatcher to power and Ronald Reagan at the same time to what is going on today. You had the Brexit vote, and now you also have Brexit vote kind of like followed on the Tea Party idea here in the United States. So we started, with the conservative pushing for more conservatism in government and everything. And I'm looking at the same way, a rise of a new conservative leader in Britain and the rise of Donald Trump. Even though he's no Ronald Reagan, but he's the closest thing we got at this time.
Yeah, I think that I agree with what you've said, but I think there's one further parallel that I would draw for our audience, and it really struck me this summer actually when I was because of my job now. I run a tech startup, Crowdpac. I'm sure we'll get to that at some point, and because it's a non-partisan political crowdfunding and data site. So I was at both political conventions this summer. And so I was in Philadelphia. I was in Cleveland with the GOP, but I was also in Philadelphia. And for various complicated reasons, our two young sons were with me. And I took them to the National Constitution Center in Philadelphia, which was a wonderful, wonderful place. And it's a great way to learn about the fundamental origins of the USA, and I found it very moving and very inspiring. And it just struck me that actually a really close parallel with what happened with Brexit is actually the Declaration of Independence. That's what was going on. It was a country, a nation-state, saying we don't want to be told what to do anymore by a bunch of people far away from us who don't understand our lives and who no one here has elected. That's the really close parallel. I think in terms of the politics of the moment, what you're also seeing in both countries and elsewhere around the world is a real rejection by people of the last few decades of rule by what I describe as a kind of technocratic elite of bankers, bureaucrats, and accountants who have pushed a policy agenda that favors globalization at any cost, that is completely casual about the impact of technology on real people's lives. And that this agenda has been pushed completely irrespective of who's been in power, whoever wins elections, whether that's Labour or Conservative in the UK or Democrats or Republicans in the US. And that's why people feel that it doesn't really matter who they vote for. Nothing really changes in their lives anyway. And people have had enough of it. And that's what led to the Brexit vote. And that is what I think explains the movement that's building behind Donald Trump.
Well, you know, I'm remembering as you guys decided to go into the EU, and I believe that was 1975, if I'm correct.
I think that's right. There was two stages. There was a decision to go in, which is a little bit earlier than that, and then there was some kind of renegotiation, and then a referendum to confirm that or something like that. I think you're right, but it was definitely the early mid-70s.
Yeah, because I remember, you know, I was still in high school, so I just gave my age away, and we were gearing up for the celebration of our bicentennial, 1776 to 1976, and a lot of us here in the United States couldn't understand, because some of us were thinking that, hey, you know, once you start to consolidate power in Brussels, you're asking to lose your total sovereignty, which is exactly what happened. You know, a lot of us saw...
and you're that's very smart of you to realize that then. To be honest, very few people in the UK realized that. I mean, frankly, Margaret Thatcher back then was campaigning to join the EU. She was on the pro-EU side of the argument that in those days. In fact, one of my favorite conversations about this topic is with my mother-in-law, who's a great campaigner for free markets and liberty around the world. And she was campaigned against it back then, and she said the same thing as you've just said, that this only ends one way, with power being taken out of our hands and centralized in Brussels.
Well, it's also one of the reasons why a lot of us fought against going into the United Nations, because right now the United Nations has their fingers in our government. They're influencing our laws and our way of life. And there's a lot of us calling to get out of the UN.
Yeah, I don't know so much about that, frankly. I haven't studied it so carefully. But I think that my point of view is that, you know, there's a very simple thing I believe in, which is people power. People should be in control of the things that matter to them in their lives. And that's why that's why I've lived in America now for 4 years and love being here. But actually it was really this summer, really thinking about the Constitution seriously for the first time and really understanding what an incredible document that is, and the thinking that lay behind it, and the principle that underlies it, which is that the people should be powerful and there shouldn't be an overmighty ruler. I just think it's a beautiful, inspiring idea, and one that we should always remember and apply in every situation.
Before we get to your question, Curtis, I just want to make one observation, because in the Daily Caller, you talk a moment of an epiphany you had when you were with Sir Kim traveling to Brussels find out what was going on. Because you would get these reams upon reams upon reams of documents from somewhere, and it would start to make its way around the bureaucracy about new regulations, and new rules, and new demands. No one knew where they were coming from, and if you didn't answer it within 48 hours, Brussels would consider that you've already agreed to it, so it becomes not just a regulation, but a law or fact.
Exactly right, and that originated with me being there in number 10 Downing Street alongside David Cameron, and us realizing after a few weeks of being there that we were aware that the government kept doing things that not only we didn't know about, but we didn't even agree with. And we thought, well, how is that even possible? We're supposed to be running the government. And as I dug into it and looked at the details and asked the questions of the civil servants, that's what, exactly as you've described, that's what became apparent, which is that, and in fact we quantified it. I asked for an audit of where the action that the government was taking originated, and it turned out that 70% of what the British government was doing originated in the EU. And then I went to try and understand, well, how did that stuff emerge from the EU? What's the process there? And this is when I had a really shocking discovery, which was that I was on the train traveling from London to Brussels, the capital of the EU, through the Channel Tunnel, and they had sent over to brief me and my colleagues from Downing Street, the guy, Sir Kim Darroch, who is now actually the ambassador here in America, the British ambassador here. At that time, he was the top diplomat in the EU for Britain. He was the guy that was supposed to represent Britain's interests in the EU. And he was explaining to us on the train journey exactly how everything worked, how policy was originated, how the process through which it emerged and then became law and regulation and so on. And we thought, that's great, that's so clear, we now have a really good understanding. We then spent the next 2 days in Brussels visiting and talking with the various parts of the system, the bureaucracy in the European Parliament and the Council of Ministers, all the different bits of the system. And basically it dawned on us about halfway through the first day that almost everything he had told us was incorrect, that the person supposed to be guarding Britain's interests didn't actually know how it even worked. And it's no criticism of him. The point I make is that it's so complicated and opaque that no one can really work out how it works. It has become a bureaucracy that serves its own interests first.
It's amazing because here in the United States, the day of the Brexit vote, there was a whole mess of us that were just sitting there hitting different websites just to see how the vote goes. And at the very beginning, all the pollsters were going, oh, the Leave vote's going to fail, the Leave vote's going to fail. But then during the final 3 or 4 hours, we started to see the numbers turn. And, oh, boy, there was a party going on the Internet.
Exactly.
So go ahead, Curtis.
Steve, it's apparent to me that
no, not Steve. I'm sorry, Steve. Jesus, I don't even know who I'm talking to anymore.
It's apparent to me that you believe that a country should maintain its national identity. But when it comes to borders, how serious is the Muslim issue over there in the UK, and especially with Sharia courts being implemented in that country?
Yeah, I think that the problem of radical Islam is, the first thing I think we need to say is that this has been going on for decades, and there is this ideology of radical Islam that has been growing and growing for many decades, and we've just ignored it. And it's something that we really, really need to wake up to and take seriously as a threat, a real organized enemy of our whole way of life. Now, obviously, it originated in outside of Europe. It originated in the Middle East, and with a particular sort of and we can go look at the background and the various ways in different countries have helped it to grow, especially the role of Saudi Arabia in helping it to grow. But there's a fact that is very important in relation to the UK, which is that because of the history of the British Empire, obviously we have a close connection in the UK with India and Pakistan, which used to be, and Bangladesh, which used to be part of the British Empire, very important parts of the empire. And Pakistan in particular, which and in the division of India that led to the creation of Pakistan and Bangladesh as separate countries from India, with Pakistan being a Muslim state, meant that over the years there's been a lot of immigration into the UK from Pakistan, most of which has been just as with other immigration, great, and has benefited our country, and you have wonderful community-minded, family-first citizens of the country who are great. But it's also the case that high proportion of Muslim immigration means that you're going to get your share of people who are receptive to that radical Islamic ideology. So that's the core problem, I think. And you also see it in other countries in Europe, like Belgium, for example, with a history of that kind of immigration. Now, I think that the real answer to this is to properly understand the threat from radical Islam and fight it as an enemy. That's why I actually really agree with what Trump says about fighting it as if it's the Cold War. because it's an enemy as dangerous, you could argue in some ways more dangerous than the Soviet Union and its satellite countries during the Cold War. So that I think is the real answer. And in the meantime, you have to be vigilant and control your borders. And again, I completely agree with him and others who say, what is so outlandish or weird or offensive about a country saying it should control its own borders? That's a completely reasonable thing to do. And we've done a really bad job of it, both in the US and in the UK. And so I think that there's a whole set of things you need to do to fight radical Islam. One of them is controlling your borders and making sure that you vet people that come to your country to make sure that they don't have terrorist links. But it's also vital to take the fight to them and to really engage them as an enemy and have a really coherent plan to defeat this very, very serious threat we face.
Well, what people don't realize, that it was not just Thomas Jefferson who recognized the threat of radical Islam to the United States and to our republic, but it was also Teddy Roosevelt who actually implemented a ban of anyone who was a polygamist. And even though he didn't say radical Islam, or the Muslim men as they were called back then, he said anyone who is a polygamist will not be allowed to enter the United States. And he also put in the requirement that you had to be someone that wants to become an American citizen within a certain time period. You will not be on the government dole. You must have a job. You must adhere to our laws. So even Teddy Roosevelt realized the threat it would be to our culture.
Yeah, I just find it, I don't know that exact parallel, but I think that even more recently, when people say it's outrageous for anyone to be talking about what's being discussed in terms of vetting people that come to the country, I think that it's important to just look at what we do already. Even on the visa form, I live here, so I'm on a green card, so I don't do this anymore. But when I used to visit the USA on the visa waiver program, for example, there's a range of questions that you have to read and answer, including are you a member of or support the Nazi Party? So we ask people about whether they were Nazis, and also in that language around the visa form, our current immigration rules here in America, we ask people whether they support the values and Constitution of the United States. What's unreasonable about any of this? We do it already. We just don't do it very well. And I think that as is evidenced with what happened in San Bernardino and that couple. And so I think that what all this shows is quite how far we've come from normal, effective, common sense government action. That saying something as reasonable as we should vet the people who come into our country to make sure that they don't mean us any harm is seen as some kind of incendiary, racist or xenophobic statement. It's not. It's just perfectly reasonable common sense.
Yeah, so we all become part of the adorable deplorables.
That's right.
It's funny because my husband's family were immigrants. They came when he was only 2 years old, and they had to say, we will not accept any government assistance for 5 years. We have a job. We have a place to live. We have a family that is sponsoring us. So if we break the law, that family is just responsible for that crime as the family that committed the crime. That was done, but it all said in the 1970s, they decided not to do that anymore and just started to open our borders and not do any background checks. And then we ended up having sanctuary cities. And unfortunately, as a New York City police officer, if I had arrested someone and I knew them to be an illegal here, and I'd put it on the booking form that this person is an illegal immigrant, I was not allowed to contact ICE to start a deportation process. Mm-hmm. The sanctuary cities have caused this to happen.
That's right, and as I understand it, I think that it's a classic example of where something that may have started as a sensible, well-intentioned thing has just gone too far, where there may have been cases where that whole procedure was abused and was used to target different communities unfairly. Well, in that case, deal with that problem. deal with that problem through better training of police officers and all the rest of it. But don't go all the way in the other direction and make it impossible to actually understand, whether there are people who've committed crimes who are illegally here. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and you actually have certain cities saying, tell the officers not to enforce the immigration laws, to the point where the Department of Justice says, no, they're supposed to enforce the immigration laws. If someone committed a crime, then they have to enforce the law. But the swing to the left so far is phenomenal. And then we have Hillary Clinton that ends up calling us a basket of deplorables for simply wanting our laws enforced. Go ahead, Curtis.
Steve, what are your thoughts on people from both sides of the aisle who say never Trump?
Yeah, I think that I'm going to start with look, Democrats, fine, they're on the other side of the argument. They've got a candidate they support. I think that the way that they characterize Trump supporters is offensive and hateful and divisive. So if you saw, look at how Trump's campaign has been characterized over the last year or so as being hateful and divisive. Those are the words that get used all the time to describe his campaign. And then you look at what Mrs. Clinton said on Friday in New York, that literally dividing the country into desirables and deplorables. You can't get more divisive than that. And it's deeply cynical because she's saying it literally standing in front of a sign saying stronger together. So it's doubly disgusting because it's hypocritical as well as being divisive and hateful. But in a way, I feel more angry with those on the Republican side who, it seems to me, are putting their kind of personal vanity ahead of in terms of how they will be perceived by their friends and associates in Washington, D.C. or New York or wherever, ahead of the interests of millions of Americans and what will actually lead to concrete, real-world outcomes. They're not evaluating the choice in this election on the basis of what will actually happen in the real world. What are the likely scenarios? Forget about, I would be the first to say that there are many things that Trump has said that I would never say and that have offended people. Fine. But in the end, we're choosing the leadership of our country, and it should really come down to what's going to be the outcome for real people. And so for Republicans, it's clear to me that if you look at the agenda being put forward by Trump and look at that compare it to Hillary Clinton's, there's no question which is more likely to lead to a stronger economy, rising incomes for working people, more job creation, improved education, all these things that Republicans should support, because he's got fundamentally, the ideas he's got around getting rid of regulation and tax reform and tax simplification and reducing corporate tax rate, all those things should be things that all Republicans should support. And I think it's such a shame that the Republican Party has not got behind someone who is really showing that he's got an appeal to the kinds of people that for years have given up on the Republican Party.
Excuse me. Sorry about that. I think there's going to be a movement of bringing together the Trump and Cruz camp, because Mike Pence said something on Fox News in an interview yesterday that caught my ear when he was asked about whether or not an overture is being made. And he kind of like danced around it, but the way he said it made it sound like the Trump camp is trying to negotiate with the Cruz camp and try to get him on board so that they can take those never Trumps and get those votes, or at least turn enough of them to turn the election. You were on Fox yesterday, and good job, too. But what do you see?
Yes, thank you. I think that it's really important that, I believe in a kind of positive, optimistic version of conservatism that is all about putting power in people's hands and trusting in the free enterprise system and at the same time using government constructively to help to deal with some of the social problems we face, like family breakdown, like the fact that people don't necessarily have the skills they need to be productive in this fast-changing global economy. And I think that there's an agenda there that we should all be able to support. And we need to come together as a party. I just hate this idea that we're all off in our different groups and camps and snarling at each other and saying, well, you're not a proper conservative, you're not a proper conservative. That is just not how I see it. I think that we've got to come together. So I hope that what you said is true, or what you're picking up from Pence is true, and that they are trying to come together. But I think that they should go further than that and try and bring together all parts of the Republican Party, because I think that there's vastly more that we agree about than that we disagree about. And so I think that if we're really going to change things, we have to do it as one united team. So that's just how I see it.
Yeah, now, you were, as an aide to David Cameron, had you been on that plane that pulled up on the tarmac in China and the stairs were not brought out, and when they're finally brought out to the back of the plane, what would you have told him to do?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I think that the idea of that I've got a kind of different view to many in the government about China. I was very clearly of the view that we should not just suck up to China at any cost, desperate for their money, but that we should stand up to them, because it's a communist regime that has terrible human rights abuses to its name, and that behaves in increasingly aggressive ways around the world, and that they are counting on the fact that we are so desperate for their money and for access to their market that we will put up with any behavior from them. And so while I was in the government, I actually advised the Prime Minister and others to prioritize our relationship with India, not with China, because my argument was India is a much closer partner to the UK. We have a long history there, going back many years, and they're part of the Commonwealth, and the Queen is the head of state, and it's not the head of state, but part of the Commonwealth, and the ties that bind us together are really strong. And India is a democracy, and that we should be showing that that's our preferred partner. And so, as a result of that, the very first major international visit that David Cameron made, where we took a big delegation of business people and cultural leaders and universities and so on, by conscious design, was to India, not China. And all the diplomats and all the bureaucrats said, you can't do that, the Chinese will be furious, they'll see it as a snub, you have to go to China first, that's what they expect. And I said, great, that's what I want. I want them to feel snubbed and offended, because I want them to know that actually we prefer dealing with democracies. So that's really, I really did give that advice then. I don't know, and that's what happened. Now, since then, and you remember I left 4 years ago, so I've been living out here in California for 4 years. I think that the position of the British government was somewhat reversed, although I'm encouraged to see that the new Prime Minister, Theresa May, is taking a pretty hard line with China. So I think it's important to stand up to bullies like China, like the Chinese government.
You know, it's true, because the Asian, to them, appearances or face is so important. And because he accepted the snub, his staff was told, oh, no, only one person now instead of all the other people you said. He was snubbed on so many levels and insulted, and he does not recognize it as an insult. I mean, Putin insulted him numerous times. There was that number of years ago where he's going down the receiving line and none of the Russians would shake his hand. That is a slap in the face, and it makes us look so poorly on the world stage. He's seen bowing to the Saudi prince. How much worse and weak do you want America to look? And this is why it's so important we get Trump in there, because he will not accept these insults. If we're supposed to be the largest, biggest power, we can't accept these insults.
I do think that's one of the things that I would be optimistic for, that he would bring back strength to the way that America behaves in the world. And I think that's really important, because I think when America retreats from the world and isn't strong, it's a scarier place, frankly. And I think we've all gotten used to the idea that America is there not as the world's policeman, and I won't go that far, but certainly as the ultimate kind of strong force for freedom and democracy. And I think that is such an important role, and I do have a feeling that Trump would be more likely to do that.
Yeah. Now we had... Oh, all right, just a second, Mike. We had before a friend of mine on Grand Rapids that's running for the school board. This is where I want to bring Crowdpac into, because there are local elections, and I do have some people in my community I'm going to send over to Crowdpac for them to take a look at it. Because it's important that we get people to start running at the grassroots level if we are to bring this nation back to what our founders want. Curtis, ask your question so that we can go into Crowdpac and discuss that.
Okay. Mine was on a lighter note. I was just wondering if you ever met the Queen, and what was she like, and who will replace her once she's gone?
I did meet her, actually. I met her, once when I was very young. I actually remembered it. We were given the day off school. It was, I would have been like 8 years old. It was the Silver Jubilee of 1977, and she came to our town, and on the south coast of England, a town called Brighton, and I remember going down and standing up with everyone and waiting, and I wouldn't say met her, but I sort of had the brush of the fingers or something like that, where she's going and meeting the crowd. But then much more recently, when I was working in Downing Street, I met her because it was I think the occasion was the anniversary, her anniversary with Prince Philip, and she came to lunch at Downing Street, which is very, very rare that she goes to Downing Street, and she and Prince Philip came to lunch, and she was welcomed by all the staff in the entrance, and then the culmination was a lunch with David and Samantha Cameron, just the four of them. But just before lunch, there was an opportunity for for the senior staff to meet her, and we all waited in line in a room just outside where they were going to have lunch, while she and the Duke of Edinburgh were brought in. And I just remember seeing these incredibly senior, it just made me laugh so much. I'm in all of these meetings with people like the Cabinet Secretary, who is the most senior civil servant. I don't know if any of your audience watches Yes Minister or Yes Prime Minister. So the character called Sir Humphrey is the ultimate power in the land who runs the civil service and so on. So there's the real life version of him today called Sir Jeremy Hayward, and various other mandarins, the big grand people that normally are so imposing in the daily life of the government. And it was just hilarious watching all of us, and me, I was the same, absolutely nervous as anything just before the Queen came in. What are we going to say? What if she asks us this? How are we going to, how do we speak to her? It was just very funny to see how humbled everybody was by the prospect of meeting her.
Now, I'm going to follow up with another curious question. When you were standing there, were you wearing your biker outfit and no shoes, or did you actually get dressed?
No, there was the one time I literally wore a tie and shoes. You're right to say that is not my normal attire. But I thought, well, this is the Queen, so it's different. It's a special occasion. Actually, is that right? I don't think I wore a tie. I think I wore a suit and shoes, but no tie. And I think Prince Philip commented on that.
You still had to be unorthodox. And I'm making notes for myself to send you Dan's website with his parodies. And I have the actual MP4 saved on my computer, and I'm going to send the Brexit actual MP4 to you, so you can put it on your phone and have it as a ringtone. But I also...
I can't, because I don't have a phone. That's another weird thing.
Well, now you're going to have to out and get one so you can have the ringtone.
Very good.
And I'm also going to send you Ann Cochran's website, the Refugee Resettlement. This is the program that's run through the UN since the 1970s that's sending these refugees unscreened to our cities. She's got a lot of great information and data on that, so you can check it out on how the UN is really influencing our nation by sending these unchecked refugees to them. So I'm making sure that I'm going to send that over to you later on this afternoon after we get off air. But I want to talk about Crowdpac because I've got my Tea Party meeting this coming next Monday, and I've got a couple of people coming over that I'm going to direct to your Crowdpac so that we can start getting grassroots back into there. Tell us about it and why you started it.
So Crowdpac is a non-partisan platform for all forms of political participation. And the heart of it really is crowdfunding. We've made it really easy for anyone to raise money for any political campaign, whether that's you running for office locally or at the state level or even nationally, or supporting different advocacy groups, or whatever you want to raise money for in politics. You can do it very easily on Crowdpac. We try to make the whole process simple and open to everyone. And the reason that I started it was when I moved here a few years ago, and I started off. I was teaching at Stanford University when I moved. And I didn't really have a clear plan for what I was going to do next. And I thought, well, I'll be based at Stanford, and something will come from that because we're out in California. And so there I am at Stanford University, right in the middle of the Silicon Valley and the tech community. And very quickly after being on campus, I was approached by a number of different student groups who were working on startup ideas. And half the students at Stanford at any one time seemed to be working on startups. That's kind of part of the culture. And they were working on ideas that had some connection with government or politics, civic participation, something like that. And one of these groups they were working on an idea which they called micro-lobbying. And the idea was the argument was, why should it just be the rich and powerful and the insiders who can buy the outcomes they want from the political system through lobbying? Why can't we open that up to everyone and allow groups of regular citizens to pool their money and compete on a level playing field with the big money donors and the insiders and the unions and so on? And so I thought that was an interesting idea and very much in line with my whole philosophy of putting power in people's hands and so on. And so I was helping them with this idea and trying to help them get it off the ground. And after a while, I remember saying to them, I think it's going to be really difficult, because when you think about how lobbying works, it's a very, very kind of human, one-to-one kind of thing, and it often takes years for a measure to pass through a legislature or something like that in order to happen. And it's very difficult to see how a website can automate that process. But I said to them that there's another way in which the insiders get what they want from politics and kind of beat real people, and that is through political donations. Why don't we create a crowdfunding site for political donations, for campaign contributions, and open that up to regular people? And they said, well, that's an interesting idea, but that's your idea, not our idea, and we're going to keep going with our idea. But if you think that's important, that's what you should do. And I literally went home that night and thought, yeah, that actually is what I want to do next. So that's how it really started. And over the years, I've built up a team here, and we've got investors and so on. And we're really trying to, one way I put it is, we're trying to democratize democracy. We're trying to put real power in people's hands. And there's so many different ways you can do that. But if you're just to your specific example of running for office, anyone can go to crowdpac.com. So the spelling is literally like Super PAC, but crowd. So CROWDPAC, crowdpac.com. And you can go there and create a campaign, a crowdfunding campaign, to raise money for your campaign, even if you haven't actually declared officially that you're the candidate for a race. That's the beauty of it. It's really trying to make it so simple for people who may not be political insiders, who don't know necessarily how the system works, who are just thinking about getting involved, but are a little bit nervous about the whole process, and they don't want to make that leap because they're worried that it might, that raising money will be difficult, and they need to get a whole kind of bureaucracy and hassle and so on. You don't have to do any of that. You can go to crowdpac.com and create a campaign to run for office where you just can start collecting pledges, and people's cards are not charged until you actually declare for the race. So you can say, I'm thinking of running for the local school board. You can upload a picture and a headline and write some copy, literally do that in minutes, and you can send it to your friends and your network and your local community, and people can pledge to your campaign, and it will say, your card will only be charged if this person actually runs for office. So it's a really great way for people to take that first step and see whether they have the support, see what it feels like to be out there asking for support from people. But that money really is banked. If you decide to run, then those pledges convert into real donations so that you know that you can get started with some money in the bank. And so what we're really trying to do is make it easy for people to break into politics, run for office, without really being dependent on the party machines and the big donors and so on, and really do it in an independent way. So that's the idea of Crowdpac.
Well, I wish I knew about this site earlier this year, because my girlfriend and I literally went door to door getting signatures on a petition to get someone onto a special election for the school board. And had we known this, we probably could have directed him and said, all right, fine, I've got the support, now let's get the signatures, let's get the campaign rolling. I mean, we did it the old...
nominate.
Yeah, we did it the old-fashioned way, though.
What we're trying to do is make it simple, because you can also nominate someone. I mean, if you go to our campaigns, you can either run yourself or you can nominate someone else. You can say, I think this person would be great for mayor of our town or whatever it is, and nominate them and raise money for them. And then they can see that they have support, and then they might enter the race. So it's really flexible and simple. And what we really want to do is open up politics, so it's not just the insiders and the people who know what they're doing, because that's what I feel has happened to politics. It's just been completely taken over by professional political insiders who know how to play the game and have gotten really cynical about it. And I just think we want to restore that sense of optimistic political participation that is really at the heart of America.
Curtis, go ahead.
The UK has been known to be a great military force, and they always had a nice Navy, pretty decent Navy, I would say, world-renowned. Now, I'm going to take you back in history a little bit. During the Falkland Wars against Argentina, you lost some ships and things like that. Has England replaced those ships, and is she ready to face another operation like that today?
I think that the answer is not today, but in the near future, because I should just do a caveat, which is that I wasn't particularly involved closely in defense policy and security and foreign affairs when I was in Downing Street. My role was to lead on domestic policy, on school reform and welfare reform and so on. Having said that, I think that a big decision was made a few years ago was it the previous Labour government? I actually can't remember, I'm afraid. But this big decision was made to commission, I think, 2 major new aircraft carriers that would enable that kind of projection of force a long way from home. So I think they are literally under construction right now, and should be ready in a few years. So I think the answer to your question is not really there as of this moment, but will be better in a few years' time.
All right, we got a couple of questions that are coming up in the chat room. One of them was from Cal, and she wanted to know what David Cameron is doing today since he stepped down as Prime Minister.
I don't know, actually. I'm afraid I haven't been in touch with him for, since Brexit, to be honest. And I expect he's not very happy with me. I think that he's probably thinking about his next move and what he's going to do. I know that his wife is a very kind of keen entrepreneur, and always wanted to start a business of her own in fashion when it became possible, when they were no longer in Downing Street. So I suspect that I have a feeling he might be wanting to take somewhat of a backseat to her, and then do the usual thing that ex-leaders do, a combination of writing a book and giving speeches and going on boards of companies and flying around the world, that kind of thing.
All right, another question that is up here is, what is your opinion about Paul Weston and the Liberty GB?
I'm afraid I don't know what that's referring to.
It seems that he is, according to Wikipedia, he was one of the founders, I guess, of the English Defense League, a right-wing group, and he ran for office in Southeast England in 2014.
I just don't know anything about them.
Okay. Some of these people are involved in the British and Canadian politics. I guess that's where those questions are coming from. But, it's such a great thing that Crowdpac is. Like I said, wish I had knew about this back in February, because we actually did it the old-fashioned way to get our guy elected. And it really stirred up the school board, because we also got 2 other people in there, and we have another 3 seats that are coming up in November. So I'm going to reach out to the others that are now running for November and steer them to, Crowdpac, because our school board.
It's getting. I think that's right. And then also remember for the next cycle, and one of the things that's really important for everyone to be aware of is the influence of state legislatures. So everyone talks about Congress, but actually, if you really want to control what happens, the state legislature is incredibly important in terms of the money that's spent and the decisions that are made there. And at the moment, there's just very little scrutiny of what goes on in state legislatures. The turnout for those elections is very low, particularly in the primaries. And so I think that another thing I would urge people to do is take a look at the state legislature and try and get involved in those races.
Yeah, I had someone contact me asking me if I would run against my state senator. I mean, the guy claims to be a Republican, but he's got rhino all over him. And we were fighting a tax, and we went a whole busload of us. There was actually a total of 5 buses that went up to the state capitol to fight them and tell our representatives, we do not want this tax, period. And I actually went nose to nose with him. And when he snapped at me, he went, what do you want me to do? A miracle? And I said, yes, exactly that. That's why we elected you, to follow the will of the people that elected you. And his face turned so bright red.
Well, the trouble with a lot of these politicians is that they don't face any real challenge. They often get elected unopposed. There are so many people in office, up and down the ballot, actually. I mean, you even see in Congress, there's something like, I think is over 20 members of Congress who were elected unopposed at either the primary or the general election. They've had literally no competition. And just like in the economy, we think that part of the economy where there's no competition, you're going to get a bad result. And I think that in the same way, these people that get elected unopposed are not going to be accountable. They won't listen to people. And therefore, I think it's really important for anyone where there's any candidate, any elected official who doesn't have opposition should be challenged. That's part of democracy. You should run against them, even if it feels like there's not much chance of winning. Just the fact of having an opponent will make them better, will make them more accountable and more responsive. There should not be anyone in our system at any level who is elected unopposed.
Well, Steve, I know you have to leave in about a minute. So, Curtis, quick question, and then he's got to go to a meeting.
It's more a statement. I would rather listen to this group over any gangster rap group. So I want to thank England or the UK for introducing us to the Beatles.
Oh, yeah, well, you're right. I mean, I completely agree. I'm a complete fan. I mean, I love them so much. You're right.
Well, Steve, thank you for being our guest. I'll shoot this stuff over to you later on this afternoon. And now you have to buy yourself a cell phone so that you can have a Brexit ringtone.
Exactly. Well, in the meantime, it's lovely to talk. Thank you. And as I say, the audience, you can check us out at crowdpac.com. Follow me on Twitter at Steve Hilton X. And it was a pleasure being with you.
Thank you so very much. And you have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye. And you. Bye.
Take care. Check it out, Steve's website, which is crowdpac.com. You got Dan Adamini. His website is intherightmind.net. And Curtis, because of the whole thing that was going on over the weekend with 9/11 and the sit-downs, KISS was performing over the weekend on their Right to Rock tour. And they had something to say about those who don't respect the United States of America and the American flag. So for our closing, I want to play this clip and their version of the Star-Spangled Banner. We will be...
is called the Freedom to Rock Tour. And I'll tell you why. You know, a lot of times people that are born free think that freedom is free, and it's not. Freedom is only free because there are people willing to sacrifice to give us freedom. I'm talking about the U.S. military. They go overseas. They protect us. They stand up for us. And I'll tell you something else. When they come back, some of them need medical help. Some of them need financial help. Some of them have husbands, wives, children. They don't get what they got coming to them from their country. So we try to make sure that they get it from us. Sometimes when we go on tour, we give $1 from every ticket to wounded warriors. We're giving $150,000 to hiring our heroes. So, with that in mind, we're going to bring out some of your finds, some of your local finds. Get ready for the day. Master Gunnery Sergeant Michelle Nelson of the U.S. Marines. American Legion Department of Massachusetts. Standing honoring our military is always cool. Still, to show some respect between pin throwing, we're going to put our right hand over our hearts, and why don't we say the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God